The crying started before sunrise, sharp, rhythmic, like it belonged to something small, with lungs too new for this air. June stepped off the porch without shoes. She didn't call out, didn't grab her coat, just followed the sound across the frost-bitten pasture, hem of her nightgown dragging through weeds. The cows didn't move. Even they were listening. The fence line sat quiet in the fog. 5 paces past the watering post, where the barbed wire curved in and back out like it was stitched too tight, she saw her. A child, no more than 3, bare feet sunk in dirt, face pink and puffy, wrists looped in a soft pink ribbon tied gently to the middle wire like someone meant to keep her close, not hurt her. June crouched. The girl blinked at her through wet lashes. "Where's your mama?" The child sniffed, looking sideways. Her voice came out too soft. "She said don't scream. She said you'd come." June touched the ribbon. It wasn't knotted, just looped like a bow. She loosened it gently, then froze. On the end of the ribbon, stitched in shaky thread, was a name. Alma. June's breath caught. Her hands dropped. She stood. The girl looked up. "You gonna leave me here?" June stared at the ribbon, then at the little hands it had held. She wiped her own palm down the side of her nightgown. "No," she said. "No, baby, I ain't." She picked the girl up. The child's head sank into her collarbone. June didn't say another word. Inside the house, June poured bathwater slowly. The girl sat on the closed toilet lid, arms tucked in. Her fingers still smelled like metal. "What's your last name?" "I don't know." "Where do you live?" "Not here." "You remember how you got to that fence?" The girl stared at her bare toes. "Do you remember who tied the ribbon?" The child shrugged. "She said I had to write my name. She said it was the only way you'd know." June turned. "Who said that?" The girl's lips quivered. She had a scar on her neck, like a burn. June's grip tightened on the towel. She handed it to the girl and left the room. The sheriff came back an hour later, boots muddy, his breath stale with coffee and whatever he hadn't said on the drive in. He stopped in the doorway. I looked at the girl. Then in June. "Where'd she come from?" "Fence line," June said. "She was tied." "Tied?" "Pink ribbon, real soft." "Her name's stitched on it." "You untied her." "I did." "You call it in." "No." He stepped further in. "Why not?" "She wasn't screaming." The sheriff looked at the girl again. She stared at him back, unblinking. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she whispered. "Alma." He turned back to June. His face went flat. "What?" "That's what she said." He walked closer, bent low. "Say it again." The girl didn't. "She's confused," June said. "Might have heard it somewhere." "Where?" he snapped. June didn't answer. That night, after the girl was asleep on the couch, June sat by the window with a cigarette she didn't light. The ribbon lay on her lap, thread faded and frayed at the edges. Each letter crooked like the hand that sewed them was either very young or very hurt. She ran her finger over the stitching. The same looping A. The same mistake in the M. It wasn't just a name. It was a signature. The kind her daughter used to stitch when she was 5. Before the fire, before the casket with nobody. The screen door creaked. The sheriff stood outside, not coming in. "You sure you didn't call this in?" "I'm sure." "Someone's gonna be missing her." June didn't look at him. "You think so?" He stared at the ribbon in her hand. "You still got that chest in the attic." Her jaw tightened. "Don't go up there." "I'm just asking." "No, you're not." The sheriff stepped back. "I'll head into town. Ask around. Maybe she wandered from the trailer lots." "She didn't." "You think she came back?" June didn't speak. "You think that's her?" he whispered. "She's too young." "You said Alma." She said Alma. He leaned against the rail. "It's not possible." June stared out at the fence line. It wasn't possible the first time either. After midnight, the girl stirred in her sleep. June sat beside her, watching her chest rise and fall. The ribbon lay on the armrest. The girl reached for it in her dream, fingers curling, lips parting. June touched her wrist, gently. The child stilled. She whispered again, half asleep. She said, "Don't cry." She said, "If I cried, you'd send me back." "Who said that?" The girl curled tighter. "My mama." June turned off the lamp, sat in the dark. The girl breathed softly, like she'd done this before, like she knew how to disappear without moving. And June sat still, because she didn't know what would happen if she moved, or if the girl woke up, or if the name stitched in ribbon meant what she feared it meant. The fence was quiet again. But the house wasn't. Not anymore. The girl was still asleep on the couch when the sheriff poured his second coffee. June sat at the table, hands in her lap, face blank as the wall clock behind her. She hadn't slept. She hadn't moved much. He set the mug down. Didn't sit. What exactly did you see? She was tied to the fence. I got that part. I mean, who did it? No one was around. No boot tracks. No. No vehicle noise? No. He rubbed the back of his neck. I looked over at the girl. You sure? I'm sure. Hell of a thing. She wasn't crying out loud, just steady. You didn't see anything else? She looked at him. No. He studied her face. She didn't flinch. Ribbon still in the drawer? No. You move it. She shook her head. It's gone. Gone how? I don't know. He turned, opened the drawers, checked under the sink. I walked to the couch and checked behind a cushion. The girl rolled but didn't wake. You took it? I didn't. He exhaled through his teeth. I'll check the station cam, see if anyone came by. You do that. He paused at the door. June. She didn't look at him. Nothing to dig up here, you understand? She blinked slowly. Wasn't planning to. He shut the door behind him. The ribbon was in her apron pocket, folded twice, still warm from her hands. She took it out in the laundry room, stared at it like it might breathe. It didn't. She pulled the matches from the shelf, lit one slow, and held it steady. The flame touched the edge of the ribbon and crawled fast. She dropped it in the rusted wash basin and let it burn down to ash. She opened the washer, threw in her nightgown, added bleach, then detergent, then another splash of bleach. In the closet, she found the child's sweater. It was pale blue with a snag in the sleeve. A smell she couldn't name clung to it. Not blood, not smoke. She shoved it in the fireplace and watched it catch. The threads curled, darkened, vanished into black. The sewing box was next. She brought it down from the top shelf. I opened it. The smell hit her first. Cedar, rusted needles, the sharp sting of old fabric. Inside, a folded paper pattern yellowed, a few thimbles, her daughter's old pinwheel patch, the kind she'd made before the barn burned. She picked up the needle roll, then stopped. In the lining of the lid, half hidden under a swatch of denim, was a small square of ribbon. Same pink, same stitching, same hand. A-L-M-A. She closed the box, slow, latched it shut. Took a thick strip of muslin and wrapped it tight around the whole thing. Then again. Then once more. She tied the knot hard, tighter than necessary, then pushed the box into the back of the cabinet under the stairs and slid a box of canning jars in front of it. That night, the child didn't speak at dinner, didn't look up. She ate half a biscuit and left the rest untouched. Are you tired? June asked. The girl nodded. You want a story? Another nod. June sat beside her on the couch. I held a book but didn't open it. Do you remember anything else? The girl leaned into her side. She told me not to tell. Who did? The child went still. She said if I did, you'd burn up again. June froze. Who told you that? The girl's lip trembled. My mama. Have you seen her face? No. Have you ever been here before? I think so. The fire snapped in the hearth. The light flickered over the girl's cheeks. She looked smaller than she had this morning. Do you know how to sew? The girl shook her head. But you stitched your name. She said to do it. She made me. Said I had to make it match. Match what? The girl's eyes blinked slowly. The one you kept in the box. June stood. Go to bed, she said. The sheriff came back past midnight. The door creaked, boots heavy. Is she still asleep? She is. You burned the clothes. What clothes? The ones you wore this morning. June didn't answer. He walked to the sink, washed his hands. We have a problem. Do we? Station cam caught a shape near the barn last night. Shape? Real blurry. But you can see a shadow moving around midnight, same time she showed up. Could have been a fox. Could have been. He dried his hands, stared at her. You didn't see a thing? No. Are you lying to me? She faced him full on. No. He nodded once, then again. I'm taking her in tomorrow. Let the state folks deal with her. No. She's not ours. She's not theirs either. He slammed his hand down. The table shook. You don't know what this is. You think this is some miracle. It's not. It's old ghosts trying to dig through. She came here. She was brought here. She remembered me. No, he said. She remembered the fire. June didn't speak. He left again. The house went quiet. Outside, the fence sat empty. No ribbon, no sign. But something had shifted in the walls. June stood in the hall. I looked toward the door under the stairs. Her hands curled into fists. She didn't open it. She didn't speak. She just listened. And the house did too. The girl didn't cry the next morning. She sat at the table with her knees pulled up, watching the light move across the wall like she remembered it from before. June poured oatmeal into a chipped bowl and slid it across. Are you hungry? A nod. You sleep okay? A shrug. Do you remember your last name yet? The girl shook her head. June stirred her own bowl, slow. What's the last thing you remember? The girl looked up. Smoke, like when something burns, but it doesn't make fire. June's spoon stopped. Have you ever had oatmeal before? Don't think so. Do you know how old you are? I'm not 4 yet, June breathed through her nose. You sure? My mama said I'm not 4 yet. She said I had a birthday once. But we forgot it. June stood. She couldn't keep sitting. At the station, no calls had come in. No reports, no missing child bulletins, no women asking for a toddler named Alma. The sheriff checked with the county. Nothing. Checked with state. Nothing. Hell's going on, he muttered. She ain't on file, said the deputy. How can a girl not be on file? Maybe she wasn't born in one. The sheriff stared at the bulletin board, then pulled the last case file from 13 years ago. The barn fire, a closed casket, a girl presumed dead, quilt remnants found in ash. He closed it again. Didn't speak. June went to the attic. She hadn't touched the chest in years, not since before the headaches started, not since the last frost the year after the funeral. She opened it slowly. Her daughter's handwriting was still taped to the inside of the lid, crooked, careful block letters. One sheet read, My name is Alma. The A curled the same way. She pulled out the folded quilts. They smelled like dry dirt and smoke. One had a stitched corner that matched the ribbon she'd burned. Same pink thread, same small hand, same little mistake in the L. June sat down on the attic floor. Hold it close. She's mine, she whispered. She was mine. That night, the girl sat beside the fire with her hands in her lap, not fidgeting, just waiting. June watched her. Do you remember this house? No. Have you ever been here? Not like this. What do you mean? The girl looked up. It feels old inside me, like something that's been folded too long. June swallowed. You see this quilt? She held it up. This belonged to a girl who used to live here. What happened to her? She died. How? Fire. Did she scream? June blinked. No one heard her. The girl touched the fabric. It feels like her. Feels like who? Like me, she said. The sheriff came home late. Still no calls? June asked. No. No one looking for her. Not a soul. June turned back to the sink. Are you sure about that? I'm sure. She's not invisible. He leaned against the doorway. You checked the chest. I did. Find anything? She nodded. Same stitch. Same letter curve. Same damn name. He closed his eyes. It's not her. She wasn't ever buried. She burned. There wasn't a body. There was ash. There was blood. There was enough. June stepped toward him. What if they lied? Who? You, your father, the old sheriff. His jaw tensed. You think we covered something? I think you knew something you never told me. He didn't respond. Later, when the girl slept on the quilt she didn't know she made, June sat beside the fire with the box in her lap. Inside, every stitched name had a match. Every letter told something small and true. She touched each one, A-L-M-A, and beneath it, a second line, too faint to read before. If found, bring her home, June cried without making a sound. June waited until the house went still. The girl is asleep. The sheriff went for night patrol, though she knew he wouldn't be patrolling anything. She lit a lamp, climbed the attic stairs slowly, like each one asked her not to. At the top, the smell of cedar and ash hit her like it always did. She pushed the door open. The chest sat where it always had. Back corner, under the window that never quite shut. She knelt in front of it, ran her hand across the lid. The old latch still held, rusted but tight. She tugged. It didn't give. She reached behind the trunk, under the loose floorboard, pulled the key wrapped in cloth, fitted in. The lock popped open. She lifted the lid. Inside, still folded neat, were the quilts her daughter made. The first was tiny, pink and brown squares, hand-tied, corners uneven. She held it to her face. It still smelled like soap and dust. Beneath it, drawings, crumpled pages, a stitched sampler, a pencil with teeth marks, a cloth book of first words. She unfolded a second quilt. Hold it up to the light. There, in the corner block, was the name, crooked and careful, A-L-M-A, the same slanted A, the uneven M. Her knees gave. She sank to the floor. Downstairs, the girl stirred, rolled over, opened her eyes to the dark. Mrs. June? Silence. She climbed off the couch. I walked toward the attic steps. June sat on the attic floor, surrounded by cloth and drawings. One showed a little house, flames licking at the roof, stick figures below it. One crossed out. She blinked, shoved it aside, picked up another, a woman's face stitched in thread, a scar across her neck. Her hand trembled. Footsteps on the stairs. Light ones. She didn't look up. Is that her box? The girl whispered. June nodded. Can I see? No. Why? Because. Is it mine? June turned. I looked at her. The girl stepped closer. I know these quilts. How? The girl pointed to one. That corner always poked me. June's mouth opened, then shut. She looked down at the crooked stitching again. She made these, she whispered. The girl nodded. I remember her hands. June looked up. You never saw her. I did. Not from outside. What do you mean? The girl sat beside her, picked up a square. She said I had to come back differently. So you wouldn't burn me this time. June flinched. I didn't burn you. I didn't say you did. I tried to find you. The girl held the thread up to the lamp. She said the fire wasn't for me. June closed the chest slowly. The sheriff came home near dawn. June was at the sewing table, needle in hand. He paused at the door. What are you doing? She didn't look up. Fixing something. He stepped closer. Looks like stitching. She didn't reply. He saw the square in her lap. That came from the attic. It did. You opened the chest. I did. You shouldn't have. June tied off the thread. Snipped it. She made these with her hands. June. She drew the woman with the scar. She sewed your badge in a square. He stared. You think she came back? No. She's not a ghost. I know. He leaned in. Then what the hell is she? June whispered. She's what's left. Later, June sat at the kitchen table, sewing box open, but her hands didn't move. She stared at the ribbon, not the burned one, a new one. The girl had tied it around her doll's wrist. Same stitch, same name. She took the ribbon, hold it tight, then closed the box, locked it, and wrapped it in a towel. She put it back under the stairs, this time with a brick on top. That night, she didn't speak. Not when the sheriff asked what she'd found. Not when the girl asked for a story. Not when she stared at the fire until her eyes burned. The quilts stayed folded. The thread stayed tight. Her mouth, like her sewing box, stayed shut. Again. The girl ran through the field behind the house barefoot. Her dress caught on thistle. She didn't flinch. June watched her from the porch, coffee cold in her hand. She doesn't wince, she said. The sheriff stood beside the truck, not answering. Same field, same distance, same breath. He lit a cigarette. You hear what they're saying? I don't listen. Well, they're talking. He stared out across the fence line. What name did she give them? Alma. He closed his eyes. God damn it. At the market, old women stopped talking when June walked past. Their eyes lingered too long. Their hands clutched purses tighter. One spoke near the potatoes. Low voice. Said she's back. Same eyes. Same name. The other leaned in. She's got that same look. That quiet kind. The kind that listens too hard. June kept walking. At the schoolhouse, the teacher pulled June aside. "She's bright." June nodded. "Asked me today if names could come back, if they were stitched right." June didn't answer. She wrote hers 6 times on the chalkboard, all crooked, all matching the way you used to sew her dresses. She doesn't remember that. Doesn't mean she didn't live it. By supper, the sheriff had taken his boots off, but not his badge. It hung heavy on the table between them. She can't go to church Sunday. She's just a child. Not to them. June pushed a plate toward him. He didn't touch it. She didn't choose the name. She said it out loud. She was named before she came here. He leaned forward. That barn burned for 3 hours. You held a quilt over your mouth so you wouldn't scream. She wasn't in it. There was blood. There was nobody. There was bone. June picked up the plate, scraped the food back into the pot. You buried a name, not a child. He stood fast. Don't start that again. She turned. It never stopped. Later, the girl stood at the sewing table. Her fingers brushed the edge of a pattern. Have you ever stitched before? June asked. No. You sure? The girl nodded. Sometimes I dream about it. The thread pulls itself. Do you remember the fire? The girl looked down. I remember being told I didn't make it. June froze. Who told you that? She did. The one who left me tied. You see her face? No. Was she kin? She said she had to carry my name till I could take it back. June sat. You know what that means? The girl didn't speak. The sheriff knocked once before entering. June didn't look at him. He walked over to the fridge, pulled a beer, cracked it. Folks saw her in the yard today. She wasn't hiding. They think she's yours. She was. She died. June turned. Have you ever seen her body? He stared. You want to dig that up again? She's already dug it up. He pointed at the child's room. That ain't her. Are you afraid it is? He sat. I'm afraid it doesn't matter. Town's already decided. Alma came back. June opened the sewing box again. Inside, the old spools were cracked, thread stiff. But one ribbon lay fresh. Pink. Stitched name. She didn't put it there. The girl appeared in the doorway. Have you ever sewed in your sleep? The girl shrugged. She said I'd remember when the house remembered me. What else did she say? Those names don't die, just get carried for a while. June touched the ribbon. Why'd she tie you to the fence? So I wouldn't run. So I'd come home the right way. June whispered. You did. The sheriff drove out to the cemetery that night, pulled up beside the old hill plot. Grass has grown over, stones cracked. He found the grave marked Alma R. No middle, no dates, just carved softly. He knelt. You in there? He asked. The wind didn't move. She can't be both, he whispered. She can't be gone and standing in my kitchen. He touched the stone. She wasn't supposed to come back. In the house, June opened the closet where the child's old boots still sat. Too small now. Too clean. She pulled out the shoebox where the hair ribbons were stored. Inside was a letter she'd never seen before, written in the same crooked hand. I'm not gone, just waiting. She sat on the floor, and the house went still, except for the room behind her, where a girl was humming a tune that hadn't been sung in 13 years. The thread was already cut when June walked in. A fresh strip of pink ribbon stretched across the kitchen table, corners held down by a salt shaker and the pepper mill. The girl sat cross-legged in the chair, needle in hand, back straight, eyes steady. Her fingers moved like they'd done this before. Not recent, not practiced, remembered. The stitch was off-center. The A leaned sideways. The M dipped. Same crooked signature as the ribbon from the fence. June stayed quiet, watched from the doorway. You've been up long. The girl nodded and didn't look up. You get that thread from my box? I found it on the shelf. You go digging? No. Where'd you learn to stitch like that? The needle paused mid-loop. My mama. June stepped closer. Your mama taught you to sew letters? She said I had to. Said I'd forget if I didn't stitch it down. June pulled out the chair across from her. Sat. That name. Do you ever spell it differently? The girl blinked. Sometimes I get the L backwards. She used to fix it. June reached across the table, ran her finger over the ribbon. You remember doing this before? Before where? Before now. Before the fence. The girl thought, I remember the stitches, not the room. Do you remember this house? No, but the scissors feel familiar. June leaned back. You know what Alma means? The girl shook her head. It means soul. The sheriff walked in without knocking, saw the ribbon on the table, and stopped mid-step. He set his hat down. You let her touch that? She found it. The girl stared at her hands. I didn't break it. He looked to June. She shouldn't be sewing that name. She didn't ask permission. I'm serious. I know. He walked to the sink, ran water, and kept his back to them. You want people to talk more? They're already talking. She needs to stay out of sight. She's not hiding anymore. He turned. You think this is some kind of sign? I think it's what it is. And what's that? June nodded at the ribbon. She's sewing her own memory. That evening, the girl sat in front of the fireplace, the same ribbon in her lap. She stitched slowly. Careful. June sat nearby, flipping through a recipe book she hadn't opened in years. She wasn't reading it. Are you tired yet? No. You want to stop? No. You understand what you're writing? It's just my name. Feels like more. The girl didn't answer. June stared at the flame. What did your mama smell like? Smoke, like a candle. Not fire. No, just the kind that follows someone. Later, June opened the sewing box again. Same thread missing, same ribbon strip cut clean, nothing else touched. She looked under the lining. Still there, a second stitched ribbon, Alma, same hand, same tilt, but this one is older, faded. She took them both into the hallway, hold them side by side. One was new, one was old, same stitch, same sole. The next morning, the sheriff sat on the porch with his boots off. She's doing it again. June handed him his coffee. She's not hurting anyone. He looked at her. Tell me you don't see it. I see it. She's bringing something back. She is. He stared out at the empty field. Does she ever say what her mama's name was? No. Maybe you should ask. Maybe I already did. He sipped slowly. And she said her mama was me. He flinched. You believe that? I believe she does. The sheriff stood, poured his coffee onto the steps. She needs to stop stitching. She won't. Then you need to stop watching. June stepped in front of him. I can't. The girl sat at the kitchen table again. A third ribbon now. Same letters. Same thread. This time she stitched something else below it. June leaned in. What's that saying? The girl answered quietly. If found, bring her home. June sat, stared at the words. You wrote that before? I think so. You write it in the fire. I wrote it before the fire came. The needle stopped. She said names burn first if you don't stitch them down. June's voice dropped. Who said that? The girl looked up. You did. June waited until the girl fell asleep, quilt up to her chin, ribbon still clutched in her hand. She walked barefoot to the kitchen. The light was dim, the stove still warm from supper. She set the kettle aside and dropped to her knees. The loose board sat beneath the sink, same one that used to creak when Alma ran past. June pulled the rug away, lifted the board slowly. Dirt underneath. Not much. A thin layer, cracked and dry. She reached for the old garden trowel. The digging was quiet. She worked slowly, steadily. A few inches down, something resisted. She kept going. It wasn't stone. She scraped again. Fabric. Wrapped tight, hardened with age. She sat back, wiped her brow with the back of her hand, reached in, pulled. It came loose with a soft pop. The dirt clung to the cloth like it didn't want to let go. She laid it out on the tile, unwrapped the first layer. The smell was faint, earth and smoke. Inside, bone, small, fragile, humans. She covered her mouth. The sheriff's headlights came up the drive. June didn't move. He parked, slammed the door. Boot steps, porch. The door opens. June. He stepped into the kitchen, stopped. What the hell? She looked up. Her hands were black with soot. His eyes dropped to the floor. What is that? I don't know. He stepped closer, saw the cloth, the shape, the curve of a jaw. Are you digging through the floor now? I heard something. Underneath. You've been hearing things for years. This is real. He crouched, touched the edge of the fabric. This cloth's from the shed. No, she said. It's older. He looked at her. You think it's her? June didn't answer. You think this is Alma? She shook her head. Then who? She stared at the bone. Someone they wanted buried quietly. He stood. This shouldn't be here. No, it shouldn't. He paced, ran both hands through his hair. You gonna call it in? I don't know. You gonna ask for forensics? They'll ask why it's under our house. He looked down again. This was wrapped carefully. She nodded, like someone meant to come back for it. Later he sat on the porch with a bottle. June sat inside, scrubbing her hands with lye soap. The soot didn't come out easy. The girl came to the doorway. Why were you digging? I dropped something, June lied. Your hands are dirty. I know. Did you find anything? June paused. Just pieces. The girl nodded. I think I heard it too. The next morning, the bundle was gone. June came downstairs, looked under the sink. Empty. She checked the burn barrel. Cold. No ash. She found the sheriff in the barn. You moved it. He didn't look at her. It wasn't safe. Where is it? Buried deeper. Where? Don't ask. She stepped closer. You think hiding it will stop it? I think digging it up made it worse. She stared at him. It was a child. He clenched his jaw. It was a mistake. Whose? He didn't answer. That night, June dreamed of the floor again. Boards peeling back, quilt squares stitched in dirt. A name whispered between the beams. She woke up with a jolt. The girl was standing at the foot of the bed. You're not supposed to move her. June sat up. What did you say? She's supposed to stay under the kitchen. June reached for her. The girl stepped back. She remembers too much when she's moved. June whispered, Who was she? The girl didn't speak. She just turned and walked down the hall. The next morning, June didn't eat. She opened the sewing box, took out the thread, sat at the kitchen table. The boards beneath her creaked, not from weight, from memory. The sheriff came in at noon, saw the untouched coffee. Are you not talking again? She didn't look up. I found another ribbon. Where? On the doorknob. He sat down. Same stitching. Same hand. He rubbed his face. This ain't stopping. No. He looked toward the sink. You think she remembers what's under there? She remembers everything. That night, June didn't sleep. She sat at the table with the box of threads, cutting each one into lengths. The girl walked in around 2. You're stitching her again. June nodded. Because she's not done. The girl whispered, She's not the only one. June looked up. What does that mean? The girl didn't answer. She just tied a ribbon around her wrist and walked away. The woodshed door creaked open on its own. The girl stepped inside, bare feet on cold dirt. Light leaked through the slats, strips of yellow across the workbench. Dust danced above a crate in the back. She didn't call for anyone. She just walked straight to it. June wiped her hands on a rag, stood at the sink, heard nothing from outside except a crow 2 fields over. She turned. The girl was gone. Inside the shed, the girl pulled the crate forward. It scraped. She crouched, lifted the lid. Inside, a folded quilt, unfinished, no border, no corners, just stitched squares like a map with no direction. She pulled it into her lap. First square, AK. Second, MH. Third, LM. Burned on one side, the thread melted. Fourth, AR. She traced it with her finger. The 5th square just said A. Her hand stopped. She looked around the shed. You were hiding this, she said, soft. June found her sitting in the doorway, a quilt spread across her knees. Where'd you get that? I didn't steal it. Didn't say you did. I think I know these names. June stepped closer. That's not a toy. I know. It's not finished. I know that too. June knelt beside her. She touched the square with the burned edge. That one came from the chapel fire. The chapel didn't burn, the girl said. June looked at her. It did once. Not the roof, the floor. June whispered, Who told you that? The girl pointed to the initials. They remember. That night, June laid the quilt out across the table. The sheriff stared at it like it would move. You know what these are? He didn't answer. These are graves, she said. You're guessing. No. I checked the plot records. These initials matched the graves behind the chapel. There's no names on those stones. That's the point. Who kept this? Your daddy. He leaned against the counter. You saying my father quilted names of dead people? I'm saying someone did. He pointed at the last square. That one's new. She nodded. It's hers. The girl sat on the porch steps, holding the quilt like it weighed more than it should. June sat beside her. You know why quilts have corners? No. They hold things in. The girl looked down. This one doesn't. June didn't speak. She said it's not done 'cause too many names got skipped. Who said that? The woman with the scar. June closed her eyes. Have you ever seen her face? No. But I hear her humming. Later that evening, June walked behind the chapel, past the fence, past the weeds. The stones sat in rows, none carved, just flat slabs. She laid the quilt down on the grass, matched the initials one by one, 10 matches. 3 were burned, 1 was the girl's. She folded the quilt back up. The sheriff sat at the kitchen table, glass in hand. She's not on any birth record. I know. She's not in the system. I know that too. She's on this quilt. June set the folded squares beside him. Then maybe she's one of them. She's breathing. So were the others once. He stared at the pattern. This isn't normal. June whispered. Nothing's been normal since the fire. The girl woke at midnight, quilt beside her. She ran her hand over the burned square, closed her eyes. I'm not the last one, she said. No one heard her, but something in the house did. The stove clicked on, the floorboard creaked, and the shed, outside, let out a sound like someone exhaling through old cloth. June stitched the missing corner that night. Not a name, just a blank square, waiting. The governor's car kicked up a tail of dust that clung to the sheriff's porch steps. 2 black SUVs followed, full of men in pressed shirts and unmuddied boots. June wiped her hands on her skirt. The girl stood beside her, shoeless. The sheriff adjusted his collar. They said it'd be just him. June didn't answer. You don't have to say anything. I wasn't planning to. The governor stepped out like he owned the land. Flashy grin, thick wrists, perfect tan. Sheriff, he said, extending a hand. Heard you had a little miracle up here. The sheriff shook it. Found her last week. No one claims her? No one yet. The governor bent down. And you must be the young lady. The girl didn't move. Is she shy? June answered. She remembers what needs remembering. The governor chuckled, standing upright. Well, word spread quickly. We've got reporters coming Monday. The county office wants her placed somewhere proper. Something structured. She's fine here. That's not your call. June's jaw tightened. The governor smiled at her, then turned back to the sheriff. You'll do the right thing. The sheriff nodded. Of course. The house emptied before sundown. The SUVs are gone. The girl sat at the table, small hands wrapped around a glass of milk. June stood in the hallway, still, quiet. You think they'll take me? The girl asked. June didn't answer. You gonna let them? June looked at her. No. The sheriff came in late, boots loud. You hear him? I heard him. He's gonna come back. I know. He'll bring paperwork, badges, maybe cameras. June stared at the sewing box. She's not going anywhere. He leaned in. You tell her that? She asked. I told her no. You know that's a lie. June walked past him. Is it? The girl sat on the porch steps. Quilt folded in her lap. I saw you stitch something last night. June sat beside her. I was practicing. It was a name. June didn't respond. It wasn't mine. No. Was it hers? It was yours once. The girl looked at her hands. I'm not done being her. You don't have to be. She leaned into June's side. I don't want to go with them. You won't. You sure? No. That night, June opened the sewing box, pull out fresh muslin, cut it neat. She sewed slowly, steady. Each letter is careful. Not Alma. A different name. One she hadn't spoken since the old chapel buried its truth. She walked out to the woodshed, lantern in one hand, folded cloth in the other. The girl followed. June opened the door. You trust me? The girl nodded. June pointed to the bench. "Sit here. I'm gonna lock it." "Why?" "Because they're coming." "You're hiding me." "No, I'm keeping you close." The girl climbed inside. June closed the door. "Locked it. Hold the key tight." The sheriff watched from the window. "What the hell are you doing?" "Giving her a name they won't recognize." "They'll find her." "Not if she's someone else." He stepped back. "You're not thinking clearly." "I've never thought clearer." She sat at the table, laid the name out, threaded the needle again, stitched it onto a ribbon, folded it into a pouch, wrapped it in the quilt. The next morning, the governor returned. Alone this time. Knocked once. June opened the door, calm. "She's gone," she said. The sheriff stepped beside her. "She ran off last night." The governor frowned. "You let her run?" "She wasn't ours." "Did you call it in?" "Didn't see a point." The governor stepped back. "She turns up in a ditch. It's on you." June didn't blink. "She won't." When he left, June went to the shed, unlocked the door. The girl sat quiet. "I have a name for you," June said. The girl took it, ran her finger over each stitch. "It's not mine." "It is now." She looked up. "I'll keep it safe." The girl kept the needle pouch under her pillow. No one had touched it, not even June. Not until the morning after the governor left for good. June waited until the child stepped outside to feed the hens. Then she opened the door to the bedroom and walked in slowly. She sat on the edge of the bed, lifted the pillow. The pouch was there, soft leather, worn edges, hand-stitched, not factory-made. She untied it, unrolled it. Needles slid out. A strip of folded muslin lay beneath. She unfolded it, stared. There were no words, just thread, red, tight, almost invisible from far away, but up close the pattern formed. Letters, crooked, familiar. She read it once, then again. Then she sat very still. The girl came back in, dirt on her knees. June stood in the kitchen, hands empty. "You stitched something inside that pouch," June said. The girl didn't look up. "You stitched it before you came here." "I think so." "Do you know what it says?" The girl shook her head. June stepped closer. "It says there were two of you." The girl blinked. One stayed. One burned. One was carried out wrapped in a quilt that didn't belong to her. The girl's voice was quiet. She said I'd remember when I needed to. "Who?" The girl didn't answer. The sheriff came in mid-morning. Sat heavy at the table. June placed the muslin down in front of him. "What is this?" he asked. "Read it." He leaned in. "Is this your handwriting?" "No." "Alma's." "She didn't know how to stitch this tight." He traced a finger over the line. "One of us burned. One of us was sewn in her place." He didn't look close enough to tell the difference. He sat back. "You think this was in the pouch the whole time?" "I know it was." He swallowed. "This is about the barn fire?" "It's about what you pulled out of it." "I pulled what was left." June stared at him. "You pulled what was easy." The girl stood in the hallway, half hidden. "You read it?" June turned. "I did." "Do you believe it?" "I believe someone wanted it found." The girl looked at the floor. "I thought she was me for a long time." "Why?" "She wore my shoes." "Use my voice." "You remember that?" "Pieces." That evening, June sat on the porch, the muslin folded on her lap. The sheriff stood by the steps. "I need to know something," he said. June waited. "When the barn burned, did you ever wonder why I wouldn't let you see the body?" "Every day." He nodded. "There wasn't much left." "You still had the badge, the boot, the half quilt. Those could have come from anyone. You made them hers." He looked away. "I couldn't tell the difference. That's the part you'll carry." The girl brought the quilt out after dark, laid it on the porch floor. "I want to add a square," she said. "To what?" "To whoever got left out." June handed her a spool. "You sure you remember how?" "I don't, but my hands do." She stitched slowly, one crooked letter at a time. "Who was she?" June asked. "She was quieter than me," the girl said. "She never asked to come inside. She stood in the doorway and waited." "What was her name?" "She didn't say." June looked at the muslin. "She gave you the pouch?" "She sewed it shut and tucked it in my pocket." "Before the fire?" "Before I woke up." The sheriff leaned against the door frame. "What happens if someone else reads that?" They won't. You sure? I stitched it into the lining. You hit it again? Names aren't meant to be read too many times, June said. They fade that way. He walked to the edge of the porch. Do you ever think we made the wrong girl stay? June didn't answer. The girl whispered, You didn't choose. She did. Later that night, June sat at the table, the needle pouch in her hand. She ran her thumb over the stitched message, now hidden again, folded tight. Bound with care. The truth was still there, but the house didn't need it spoken aloud anymore. The name stitched in thread was enough. The memory would hold. The sun hadn't risen yet. Not fully. Just that pale light that made things look softer than they were. The sheriff pulled the truck off the road and coasted to a stop without killing the engine. He saw her from the hill, standing alone at the fence line. Same spot, same stretch of wire, same breathless stillness like the ground itself remembered. He stepped out slowly, left the truck running. June didn't turn around. Her hands were folded in front of her. In one of them, a strip of pink ribbon hung loose, swaying gently in the breeze. You come out here for peace? He asked. No. Are you waiting on something? She shook her head. I'm remembering what I didn't see. He walked up beside her, hands in his coat pockets. The air smelled dry, like dust had settled deep into the roots. Why that fence? He asked. She was tied here. He looked at the barbed wire. She's home now. June nodded. Not all the way. He studied her face. You ain't let go. She never belonged to us. He said it quieter. She's not mine. June's voice came soft. She never was. They stood in silence. The wind picked up slightly. Not enough to move branches, but enough to shift the soil. He looked down at her hand. Is that the same ribbon? No. Looks like it. It's not. He didn't ask where the old one was. Didn't ask how many she'd kept. The girls stood just a few paces behind them. Neither of them noticed at first. She wasn't holding the doll she sometimes carried. She held a small shovel, rusted. The wood handle cracked. She wasn't crying. She wasn't watching them. She was staring at the ground. June turned first. Where'd you get that? The girl didn't answer. Who gave it to you? She looked up. It was already here. The sheriff took a step forward. That's mine. No. I used it when I was 10. Buried a stray cat back by the creek. She held it tighter. It's not yours anymore. June knelt beside her. What do you want to dig? The girl shrugged. Just want to see what's under. There's nothing buried here. The girl whispered. Not anymore. The sheriff turned his back. Don't let her play games like this. She's not playing, June said. The girl pressed the shovel into the earth, not deep, not frantic, just a slow, steady rhythm. She tied me to this fence for a reason, she said. Who did? She said I had to be here when the land remembered. What does that mean? The girl looked at June. You remember, don't you? June's hands trembled. I remember the smoke. The girl nodded. I remember 2 girls running out of the barn. One fell, one didn't. The sheriff spoke. There was only one body. There were 2, June said. The digging stopped. The girl looked at them both. One was hidden, she said. The sheriff knelt down. His face was tight. You're saying we buried her wrong? No. You're saying I carried the wrong girl out? No. You're saying I lied? The girl paused. I think someone else did before you even got there. June stood up. There was a window on the far side, one I never checked. You said it was sealed. I said it looked sealed. She looked at the sheriff. We buried a name, not a child. The girl dropped the shovel. It landed soft. Do I still have to carry it? She asked. Carry what? The wrong name. June stepped toward her. No, baby. I don't feel like Alma anymore. That's okay. Do I have to remember it? June bent to pick up the shovel. No, not all of it. The sheriff rubbed his temples. You think the land's haunted? June stared at the ground. I think we are. The girl pointed to the corner post of the fence. Something was tied there before me. Another child. A promise. The sheriff whispered, We broke it. The girl said nothing. She picked up the shovel again and walked a few paces to the left. Right here, she said. She dug one more time, and this time she hit something hollow. June crouched, brushed the dirt back with her hands. It was wood, splintered, buried shallow. The sheriff knelt beside her. What the hell? It was a box, small, about the size of a sewing crate. June pried it open. Inside, a piece of burned cloth, a needle, a badge. The sheriff froze. That's my father's. June stared at the cloth. I made this square, she whispered. I stitched it the week before the fire. The girl looked down. He left it here. He wanted it forgotten. The sheriff shook his head. My father didn't. He did, June whispered. They took the wrong girl, and he made it disappear. The girl sat down beside the box. I don't want to be either of them anymore. You don't have to. I want a name that doesn't carry smoke. June looked at her. Then we'll stitch one tonight. The sheriff stood. His voice cracked. What do we do with this? June held the box to her chest. We take it home, the girl whispered. No. June looked at her. It belongs to the dirt now. They buried the box back into the earth. The sheriff packed it down himself. No markers, no cross, just silence. The girl tied a new ribbon to the fence. This one didn't have a name. Just 3 stitches, one for each of them. They walked back toward the house together, slow, quiet. The fence stood behind them, holding something it had carried too long, and for the first time in years, it didn't creak. The fence line waited like it always had, quiet, still. The posts leaned the same way, wire rusted into the soil, but today it carried something new. A sheriff's badge, nailed dead center to the old post where the toddler had once been tied. A strip of ribbon looped through the star, pink thread spelling out the crooked name one last time. June stood a few steps away, her hands folded. The sheriff was beside her, his face slack, jaw tight, eyes locked on the badge. Behind them, the girl held the quilt, folded, finished. She didn't say a word. The sheriff broke first. You put that there? June shook her head. Then who? She looked at him. Who do you think? His mouth twitched. You saying it was her? June's voice was steady. She knows where things belong. The girl spoke. It wasn't mine to carry. The sheriff turned. Then whose was it? The girl looked down at the quilt. It was always yours. He stepped forward, touched the ribbon tied through the badge. You think this means I'm guilty? It means you were part of it, June said. I didn't bury her here. You didn't have to. You turned your head. His hand dropped. You think I wanted this? You wanted it over. The girl laid the quilt across the grass. Each square lined, every stitch done. She pointed at the last one, bottom corner. This is the piece that finishes it. June knelt down, ran her hand across the fabric. What's in it? The girl said, everything that stayed buried too long. The sheriff crouched low. What does that mean? The girl stared at him. It means you don't get to hide behind your father's shadow anymore. He stood. You don't know what that fire was. The girl answered, I was in it. No, you were carried out. Not me. The other one. June whispered, the one who replaced her. The girl nodded. She burned because someone had to. The sheriff swallowed. You're saying I saved the wrong child. No, June said, you saved the one they told you to save. And who told me that? She looked him dead in the eye. Your father. Silence hung heavy. The sheriff stepped back, looked at the badge nailed to the post again. My father's name is gone. Mine's next. June said, it was always next. The girl gathered the quilt back into her arms, folded neat, like she knew the weight of it. What do I do with this? She asked. June's voice softened. You carry it, then you leave it somewhere it can rest. Where? June looked at the fence. Not here. The sheriff sat on the ground, elbows on his knees. You think this land will forgive us? June said. It doesn't need to. Then who does? The child who carried the wrong name. The girl spoke again. It's not my name anymore. What is it then? June asked. The girl thought, I don't know yet, but I'll find it. June touched her shoulder. You don't owe us anything. The girl shook her head. I owe her. Her who? The sheriff asked. The one that burned. The wind shifted. The ribbon trembled. The badge creaked against the nail, like it wanted to fall loose, but didn't. The sheriff stared at it. You want me to take it down? No, June said. You want it to stay? Yes. The girl spoke softly. It belongs here. June picked up the shovel lying in the grass, held it out. The sheriff didn't move. "You're the one who buried the truth," she said. He shook his head. "I just kept walking." "Same thing." His hands trembled. He took the shovel. "What do I dig?" "The ground you avoided." They dug under the fence post. The dirt gave easy, like it had been waiting. The sheriff's breaths grew ragged. His shirt darkened with sweat. "What am I looking for?" "You'll know," June said. The shovel hit wood. He froze. "Another box." June whispered. He knelt, brushed dirt away with his hands, pulled it free. It was smaller than the last, wrapped in charred cloth. He looked at June. "You want me to open it?" "Yes." He peeled the cloth back. Inside, a scrap of quilt, burned edges, a child's shoe, a single braid of hair tied with ribbon. The sheriff dropped it. "God help us." The girl knelt, picked it up gentle. This was hers. June's voice cracked. "I made that braid." The sheriff whispered, "We buried her twice." "No," June said. "You buried her wrong." The girl tucked the braid into the finished quilt, folded it tight. "Now it's done," she said. June looked at her. "What about you?" The girl shook her head. "I don't belong here anymore." The sheriff stood. "You'll just walk away." "She has to," June said. "And we're supposed to stay with this?" "Yes." He clenched his fists. "Then I carry it too." The girl turned toward the road, quilt in her arms. She didn't look back. She just walked. June called after her. "Where will you go?" The girl said, "Where the name can't find me." And she kept moving. The ribbon fluttered once. The badge caught the light. The sheriff and his wife stood alone by the fence, and the land held its silence. The girl's feet pressed dust into the road, quilt tight in her arms. She didn't look back. June stood at the fence until the shape of her disappeared beyond the field. The sheriff leaned against the post, head low, badge still nailed above him. "You just gonna let her walk?" he asked. "Yes." "You don't even know where she's going." "She does." They went back inside. The house felt hollow, the chairs too empty, the air heavy with ash that wasn't there. The sheriff poured a drink. June didn't stop him. "You think she'll ever come back?" he asked. "No." "You sound sure." "I am." He downed half the glass. "What are we supposed to do now?" "Live with it." The next morning, June went to the shed. The door still hung open from the night before. She found the scraps of thread, burned cloth, the half-finished things no one wanted. She gathered them in a sack, brought them to the fire pit. The sheriff came out, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "You burning it all?" "Yes." "Even the quilts?" "Especially the quilts." He frowned. They were hers. They belonged to ghosts. The fire caught fast. The cloth curled. Thread popped in the flames. The smell was sharp, bitter. The sheriff stood back. June didn't move. He said, "You're not crying." "No. You did all those years ago. I wasted enough tears then." He shifted his weight. "You think this ends it?" "No. But it makes the ground lighter." By evening, word had spread. Folks came by the fence, staring at the ribbon tied to the badge. Some whispered, some prayed. A few spat. June sat on the porch, didn't answer questions, didn't offer coffee. The sheriff stood with his arms crossed. One old man said, "That badge don't belong out there." The sheriff replied, "It belongs exactly there." The man shook his head. "People won't forget this." "They're not supposed to." That night, the house groaned. Floorboards shifted. June woke first, sat upright, listening. The sheriff stirred. "You hear it too?" "Yes." They got up together, walked into the kitchen. The rug had moved. The loose board showed. June knelt, lifted it. Empty. She whispered, "She took it." The sheriff frowned. "Took what?" "The last piece." Morning came with silence. No birds, no crow calls, just stillness. The sheriff made coffee, poured hers first. "Do you think she'll keep the quilt?" he asked. "Yes." "You think she'll bury it?" "No. She'll carry it." He sipped. "And if someone asks about her name, she'll give them a new one." By mid-afternoon, June went back to the fence, stood where the badge hung, touched the ribbon. It felt different, softer, almost warm. She whispered, "You're free now." The sheriff came up behind her. "You talking to her?" "Yes." "Which one?" "Both." He stared at the ground. "I don't know how to live with this." "You don't have to." You just have to keep walking. That evening, the sheriff sat at the table with his head in his hands. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. June set a plate down. No. Everything you avoided became the truth. He looked at her. You blame me? Yes. And yourself? Yes. He nodded once. Then we're even. The town grew restless. The governor sent a letter, demands for custody, for answers. June burned it in the stove. The sheriff didn't argue. You just made an enemy. They already were. You think they'll come for us? They won't find what they're looking for. Days passed. The ribbon weathered. The badge dulled, but no one touched it. Even children stayed away. The house grew quieter. No humming. No footsteps in the night. June sewed nothing. The box stayed shut. The sheriff drank less, walked more, spent long hours by the fence, head bent. One evening he asked, "Do you regret it?" June replied, "Regret what?" Not following her. She shook her head. She wasn't ours to follow. Weeks later, June found herself in the chapel graveyard. She laid a plain cloth square on one of the nameless stones. The sheriff joined her. You know which one is hers? No. Then why here? She deserved a marker, even if it's the wrong ground. He nodded. I'll come with you next time. That night, they sat on the porch, stars faint above the trees. The sheriff said, "What if she's out there with no one? She has herself. That enough? It has to be." He sighed. She looked like you when she walked away. June whispered, "She looked like the girl I lost." Months passed. The house held. The land grew quiet. People stopped coming by. But the fence stayed, ribbon frayed, badge rusted deeper into the post, and one morning, June walked out with scissors. The sheriff watched her. You cutting it down? No. She trimmed the ends, neatened the bow. He asked, why? Because it's the last stitch left. She turned to him. Do you want to live with it? He said, I already do. That evening, the two of them sat by the fire. No quilts, no ribbons, just silence. The sheriff finally spoke. You think she found peace? Yes. And us. June looked at him. The stitch was the last thing. Now it's just thread. Outside, the fence stood still. The badge caught the final light of day. The ribbon swayed once, then rested. The girl was gone. The quilt was finished. The house, for the first time in years, was empty of names. And June let it be.